Have you ever known, really known, exactly what you needed to do, but you just couldn't? Well, today we're diving into a story that's about 2,000 years old. And believe it or not, it holds a pretty powerful solution to that very modern problem.
Yeah, we've all been there, right? You know you should start that project or make that healthy choice or have that tough conversation, but you just don't. There's this huge gap between knowing the right thing and actually doing it. So why is that chasm so incredibly hard to cross?
Well, there's a name for this. It's called the mastery paradox. It's this frustrating trap we fall into, where we have all the information, we can see the path forward perfectly clearly, but we get stuck in this loop of overthinking and analyzing instead of just taking that first step. You know, one of the most brilliant illustrations of this paradox comes from an ancient story recorded in the Gospel of Luke. And it starts, like so many interesting stories do, with a test. So picture this. An expert in religious and civic law stands up to question Jesus. But let's be clear, his intention isn't really to learn anything. It says he's there to test him, to try and corner him in some kind of public theological debate. And the question he asks is, on the surface, a really profound one. What must I do to inherit eternal life? But remember the context here. This isn't a sincere search for truth. It's more like a verbal chess move.
Now, Jesus, being brilliant, doesn't give some new, complicated answer. He just flips it right back on the expert. He says, well, what's written in the law? How do you read it? And the lawyer, he answers perfectly. He recites the two greatest commandments. Love God with everything you've got, and love your neighbor as yourself. The thing is, he already knows the answer. He has the knowledge.
So the lawyer has the right information, and when Jesus tells him, yep, do this and you will live, he deflects. See, he's not looking for clarity on how to act. He's looking for a loophole, an escape hatch.
And here it is, the pivotal question that gives the whole game away. And who is my neighbor? This isn't a humble request for wisdom. It's an attempt to draw a line in the sand, to define the absolute limits of his responsibility. The subtext here is just everything. The lawyer wants a checklist. He's really asking, okay, who do I have to love and who can I just safely ignore? He's trying to use his knowledge of doctrine to think his way out of the simple but difficult command to just act. This right here, this is the mastery paradox in its purest form. But Jesus doesn't take the bait. He doesn't offer a legal definition or get pulled into a debate. He knows that an abstract answer will just lead to more analyzing. So instead, he answers with a story. He paints this vivid picture. A man is traveling the treacherous road from Jerusalem down to Jericho, a path that was notorious for bandits. And sure enough, thieves jump him. They take everything he has, beat him brutally, and just leave him for dead on the side of the road. Pretty soon, a priest comes walking down that same road. A religious leader, a guy who knows the law inside and out. He sees the wounded man, and what does he do? He crosses over to the other side of the road and just keeps on going. Then a Levite, another person whose life was wrapped up in temple service, he comes along. He sees the man too, and he does the exact same thing. He just passes by on the other side.
So what is going on here? Why did they do this? These were the experts, but their knowledge actually became a trap. Maybe they were worried the man was dead and touching a corpse would make them ritually unclean. They got stuck analyzing purity rules, personal risks, social implications. Their expertise became the perfect excuse for doing nothing at all.
But wait, a third person is coming down the road. And he's the one person the lawyer and probably everyone else listening would have least expected to be the hero of this story. A Samaritan. Now, to the Jewish lawyer listening, this man was a despised outsider, an enemy even. But here's the difference. Where the experts saw a complex legal problem, the Samaritan just saw a human being in pain. Where they were paralyzed by all the what-ifs, he was moved by simple, straightforward compassion. And his compassion wasn't just some warm feeling. It was a whole series of concrete actions. He knelt down, he used his own supplies, oil and wine to clean and bandage the man's wounds. He put the man on his own animal, took him to an inn and cared for him overnight, and then he paid the innkeeper out of his own pocket to continue the care. This was costly, it was inconvenient, and it was deeply sacrificial. So, with the story told, Jesus brings the lesson right back to the lawyer, forcing him to face the truth. And in doing so, he reveals the solution to this whole mastery paradox.
Jesus just asks a simple question. So, which one of these three was a neighbor to the man who was attacked? And the lawyer,
He's trapped by the simple, undeniable logic of the story. He can't even bring himself to say the word Samaritan. He just mumbles, "the one who showed mercy."
And Jesus' final instruction is the knockout punch. It's not go and think about this some more. It's not go write a paper on it. It's the simple, direct command to act. Go and do likewise. That's the answer to the lawyer's intellectual games, and is the solution to our own analysis paralysis.
You can think about it like learning to ride a bike. You can read every manual on physics and balance, you can watch 100 videos, but you will never ever learn until you get on and start pedaling. The priest and the Levite, they were the thinkers, totally paralyzed by their knowledge. The Samaritan was the doer. He just saw the need and started pedaling. Mastery comes from doing, not just from knowing.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us, right here, right now? How do we stop being the thinkers standing on the side of the road and actually start doing?
Well, first, we learn that action always triumphs over analysis. It's better to do one small, imperfect good thing than to sit around planning 1,000 perfect ones that never happen. Second, our neighbor gets a new definition. It's not about your tribe or your team, it's just anyone in your path who needs help. Third, real compassion is costly. It's supposed to demand something from us. And finally, maybe the biggest lesson of all, neighbor isn't really a noun. It's a verb. It's something you do.
And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. The story completely flips the lawyer's question on its head. He wanted to know who qualified to receive his love, but Jesus shows him that the real question isn't about identifying who your neighbor is. The real question is whether you will choose to be a neighbor to the next person you see in need. So, will you be the one who stops and does likewise?